Good morning, students. In this chapter of gender and religion and caste, we had seen yesterday that yes, women started at a position of disadvantage in many parts of the world, and but I also argued that it is not just that women started as a disadvantage, because you have to understand that the whole human race is about having privileges, and the people who do not have privileges. The people who have the privileges are usually the people who have access to resources, and people who would not be having the privileges would not be having access to resources. And definitely, if you do not have access to resources, then you do not are also not able to make any money out of it, and you would not be able to use those resources. So that is why you are deprived of the benefits of those resources as well. So let us not kind of, and I also argued that yes, the whole struggle of human race is not based on gender, as today it is very fashionable to kind of trace you to that place, but it is more about the people who about have nots and haves, people who have access to wealth and resources and people who do not have, and that is how it determined, the whole thing gets determined. Guys, just look at the world around you. It is not about man or a woman. If your driver, right, if your driver who happens to be less privileged than you are, if he enters your drawing room, you do not ask him to sit on the sofa and have tea with him. None of us do that. Whatever we would like to delude and claim and try to preach the world that how open and broad-minded and progressive we are, but we normally do not do that. Why? Because that same human being, though a man, it's not a woman. In fact, on the contrary, if a woman enters your drawing room, probably you would, even if she is an unprivileged woman, you would give her more respect than probably to a man, because just because she happens to be a woman, and naturally you would be nice to her. So, yes, this chapter is based on the fact about certain things that happen because women and uh, I'm sorry, because people do not have access to certain things, and here we have chosen to concentrate only on what happens to a woman who is not having those the access to those resources. And we have, oh, but yes, coming today to this point about that is very true when you come to especially the subject of political science, whereby women in most part of the world were not allowed political rights, and political rights start with, if you can really give vote, if you have the voting rights, if you have access to the ballot boxes. Now, this is something which came very, very late to women around the world. Okay, it came to men much before it came to women, and there is no denying this fact. Okay, and it is very true, because women were considered to be traditionally having the role of homemakers, and that yes, they would be looking after the family, they would be looking after the home, they would be looking after the children, and that is how it would be, and men would be taking care of the affairs of outside, that they would be. But you have to understand one very important thing, students, because yeah, it was the men who used to decide what would happen in the society, because it was the men who used to go to war, it was the men who were traveling around the world for commerce. So because the whole activity centered around them, so naturally they were the ones who were dictating terms. So it was very late that women started getting voting rights around the world, and most of it happened in the early part of 20th century, around the First World War. After the First World War ended, because women, for the first time, they were able to prove to their respective societies, because when the men were at war during the First World War, it was the women who were handling almost everything that was happening within their own countries, their factories, their trading activities, their commerce activities, the societies. So naturally, women, for the first time, it was the First World War where they proved in different parts of the world that yes, they were no less than men, and gradually then it was realized that yes, women can also take over the responsibilities, that is, the political responsibilities. They had always been important in social circles and commerce activity and all of that. But when it came to political responsibilities, people did not have much confidence in them, and it was only after the First World War that it was considered that yes, she is ready. Okay, so coming to this, about perception of ideal woman. This is typically, and this is a cartoon which tries to tell you that how women play different roles in society: the role of a mother, the role of a fashion model, or every different kinds of role that she plays. That is something which you can also look at this cartoon. Okay, now in our country, women still lag much behind men despite some improvements since independence. Ours is still a male dominated patriarchal society, which is very true. Women face disadvantage, discrimination, and oppression in various ways. Yes, in certain parts of India, it definitely happens. The literacy rate among women is only 54% compared to 76% among men. Now, this is something which is very, very uh, uh, it tells you the true reality of Indian society, whereby the literacy rate of women happens to be much less than what it happens to be with men. But students, you have to understand that this is more to do with the lack of resources and the lack of money, the lack of and that is exactly the reason why, when given a choice, when parents have to make that choice as to who should be given more education or at all higher education, then the family usually goes with the male child, because they have an extreme scarce situation, whereby they have very limited amount of money. And that is the reason why, even if they allow the girl child to be educated till class 10 or class 12, it is very difficult for them to really sponsor the education of the girl child beyond that. But then now, what is this situation is changing, students. I don't know what year this data is about. 54% above of women having education, and 76% of men having the literacy rate. This has definitely changed, students, because now a lot of state governments have been very actively participating, especially when it comes to the education of a girl child, right from school to class 11, 12, to even now colleges. A lot of states in India have now made uh, education free for the girl child till the college level as well, when it comes to the government colleges, of course. So education for them now is free. Okay, and in certain states it is 50%. Okay, so this is changing now, because economics used to be the main reason why women yeah, were in a position of disadvantage. A lot of states in India have now started working towards that. You can look at this thing. It's about the same thing about the participation of women in the household activities. Now, the girl students, proportion of girl students go for higher studies. When we look at school results, girls perform as well as boys, if not better in some places. Now, this is something which we all know about. Now, no wonder the proportion of women among the highly paid and the valued job is still very small. On an average, an Indian woman works 1 hour more than the average man every day, yet much of her work is not paid and therefore often not valued. Now, this is something which happens in our homes most of the time, where our mothers and sisters do a lot of things which we normally, men normally, don't do. But definitely they don't get paid for it, and that's what is being mentioned here. The Equal Remuneration Act of 1976 provides that equal wages should be paid to equal work. Guys, before 1976, even if the women, say in a factory, was doing the same job, and the man was doing also the same task, the man would be paid more compared to the woman. Okay, and not that it was a widespread practice, but then yes, a lot of factory owners and a lot of contractors, that's what they used to practice, because they could get away with it. They could afford to pay 20 rupees to the woman and probably 25 rupees to the man, and they could get away with it. But after 1976, now it has become illegal. If a contractor or a factory owner, if he pays a woman the less amount compared to the same job for that and the money that he would pay to a man, she can actually take him to the courts. Okay, and he can definitely be fined and penalized. So he dare won't do that, and no one does it that way these days. That for the same task, a man would be paid more and a woman would be paid less. It doesn't happen that way anymore. However, in almost all areas of work, from sports and cinema to factories and fields, women are paid less than men, even when both do exactly the same work. Students, this is I disagree with it. Okay, I completely disagree because with this example. Now let's take however, in most areas of work, guys, I am giving you this option of disagreeing, not in the sense that you completely debunk what is being mentioned here, but also the fact I want you to think. Now you're in class 10, now you are mature, behave like mature adults, right? Because you now need to think that. Now let's take the first example from sports. Now, it is not about that Virat Kohli is paid more and some female cricketer is paid less just because that female cricketer happens to be a woman and Virat Kohli being a man, he gets paid more. No, it is not that way. Guys, you have to understand that Virat Kohli or Dhoni or any male cricketer gets paid more for one simple reason, that you and I, we watch them more on television. Most of us would be able to name at least seven or eight, or some of you, even the whole team of cricket team of India. But if I would ask you, please name three female cricketers of Indian cricket team, and you would fall flat. You would not be able to. Why? Because you're not interested. That's it. If you have a female version of IPL, I wonder how many of you would be going to pack the stadiums. And that's exactly the reason why the women would invite less sponsorship. Because why? Because the demand is limited. And once the demand gets limited, the payment, of course, gets affected. It is as obvious as that. It is not that the sponsors or you and I have deliberately decided that कि woman को तो कम ही pay करना है and आदमी को तो ज़्यादा ही pay करना है. It is not that kind of discrimination. It is completely guided by the demand, right? That's how it is. So from sports and cinema to factories and field, guys, sports and women are paid less than men, even when both do exactly the same work. Guys, this is it again comes to demand. Forget about the comparison between say now they are saying about cinema. Forget about the comparison between, say, what Deepika Padukone would make. Definitely she would make less than Salman Khan. But do you think she makes less money just because she happens to be a woman? No. You go to theaters to watch Bhai, and that is the reason why he gets paid more. Now, if you start applying the same standards, that even when both do exactly the same work, guys, of course, Rajpal Yadav does exactly the same work which Salman Khan or Amir Khan does. But would you pay Rajpal Yadav 100 crore rupees because, just like Amir Khan, because both of them do the same work? Or would you pay Rajpal Yadav the way you pay Amitabh Bachchan? If tomorrow Rajpal Yadav started or Johnny Lever started hosting KBC, would you pay him the same kind of money which you pay to Amitabh Bachchan? I don't think so. So, guys, it is about demand. Yeah, I would like, whom do I want to see? Whom do I like to see? That's what it is about, not just about all the time that, yes, it is being systematic or an institutional discrimination. Thanks.